Lance was supposed to fill out some financial aid because he got a scholarship in New York, and I kept calling him and he wasn't returning my call.
I left on my answering machine in my dorm room. I'm away for the weekend in DC, I'll get back to you.
It was a Monday that he had called me. I said, "Where were you?" And he said, "I went to Washington, DC for the Gay Pride March."
She said, "Oh, well, were you a part of that march?" And I thought this was like my big moment, right? So I'm like, yes, I was part of the march.
And all I said, "Does that mean you're gay?" He said yes.
That's when there was kind of a quick silence.
Of course, I was in shock. I called John right away at work and told him our son
is a homosexual. And I was at work and I was busy. And I came home that night, that evening, and Belinda was crying. And I asked her, "Why are you crying?" And she says, "I don't know."
My child is now telling me he's gay, and all my expectation of what his life is going to be has changed. Who is this child? Is he the same son that I knew, that I loved? It's the unknown, scared of the unknown. During that time, HIV/AIDS was on the rise. It was a bad thing. It was a taboo.
For Belinda, it is an emotional thing. And for me, it was an object, it's a problem. I have a gay son. I don't know what that means. We don't know what gay is. But we do know that it is bad, that society is a threat to people who are gay. For Belinda, what shall I tell my family? Can I tell my family?
I was very quiet. I wasn't sharing that son because I was, people would ask me as a Filipina, as Asian parents, we would say, okay, I would tell about my oldest son and, all of my children. But when Lance came out, I stopped talking about him.
Never thought about having a gay son. You begin to question, what could I have done to prevent this tragedy from happening? What did I do wrong to make him gay? For me, there was an element of anger. We came to the land of the free and the home of the brave, and I knew that the opportunity was greatly diminished for a gay son.
A whole family's legacy sort of halted because of this one issue. It took my dad a lot longer to accept my sexuality. He didn't want to deal with it. He wasn't talking about it in that very kind of Asian way of like, if we don't talk about it, then it's not an issue.
I was born in Jakarta. Conservative, I would say I had a conservative background. My father was a soldier. So I know gays are there, but I have absolutely no idea. Gay was not talked about for the same reason. Criminals are not talked about for the same reason. Insane people are not talked about. They're not part of our universe.
In the Philippines, I know that there was a word, bakla, which is a man acting like a woman. Growing up, I didn't know of any family members who were gay. It's not part of the culture. It's not part of the norm.
In the end, culture wins, right? Where they grew up and how they were raised. As much as maybe they tried to be progressive or tried to not let that filter what they were doing, it filtered everything that they were doing. It was so amazingly difficult for them. We didn't really talk a lot about feelings and emotions, and there wasn't processing. It was always about education, and it was about grades, and it was about work. The first time I came home for the summer, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how people were going to react. And so what I did is I kind of flung it in their face often. Like I was like, we're going to have to deal with this at some point. So at every moment, I wanted to talk about it. And so when they said like, how's class? I would tell them like, oh, this is what I'm learning about the gay liberation movement. And so I just talked about it all the time until it was normalized, or they're just so tired of it. They're like, yes, 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 and they would just accept it.
He educated us.
Lance sent us literature to read. I remember Lance came home from holiday, and I had read an article that they're homosexual seagulls. And I said, even among the seagulls, there are homosexuals. And then I read they found the homosexual gene. And the article said they can now change it. And so I said, hey, Lance, you can now have a change in the homosexual gene. And Lance said, why do I want to? He doesn't want to be straight. He thinks he is normal. And so, okay, he thinks he's normal. I don't think he's normal. What's the disconnect?
But I also try to relate it to like gender issues and like, being oppressed as a gay man is also the same oppression that oppresses women, and you wouldn't want that to happen to my sister as she's growing up as an Asian American woman in the sexist society. So like there were ways in which I tried to get them on board by saying it's not just like a gay issue, that oppression is bad regardless.
Lights go up.
We learned, we educated ourselves. We were able to talk with our other two children at that time.
We never did not accept our son. He is our son, and that's it. What led us to understand him was to ask questions, ask other people questions, go see parents who also had gay children and accepted them.
When I found out that Luna is lesbian, it's like, whoops, that's the first reaction. And that's honest reaction.
At that point, I was really like, don't people just see me and know,
She was in college. She brought her girlfriend, and I didn't have any clue. I think in her way, that was her way of coming out. But from my point of view, she brought friend.
Here's my friend, and then, 4 weeks down the line, we're sleeping in the same room, interacting like a couple, and they know something's up.
No, I think nobody really expect, but, and nobody was prepared for that. I don't think I was prepared.
I'm her little baby daughter, which, I'm the youngest. So she always sees me like that, no matter what,
When she was in the kindergarten, her kindergarten teacher told me, if there is a first woman president, Luna is going to be. So, of course, we had very high hope for her.
Yeah, I think it's been hard for her.
I was born in Seoul, Korea, and came to the United States as an immigrant. In Korea, it's stricter and it's more family-oriented. You worship your parents, your grandparents. Your father is the king of the house, so your father says no, then if you have other idea, you either hide or you speak out to be a rebellious child. When I, went through the divorce, my father told me, I'm not one of the family, because it was such a shame.
I grew up in Virginia, Northern Virginia. It was not a very diverse community, so we were not fitting in very much. We were kids of immigrants. I remember I never really thought about gay people or anything, pretty much until college, and even then it wasn't conscious.
I remember remotely when I was younger, in our neighborhood, when I think back now, that person must be a gay. But the adults in our family or anybody, they kind of point him, he's crazy or you put down right away. Other than that, I really do not remember anybody talking about gay or lesbian
At some point I rejected it, and I decided that that wasn't right. In my mind I was just like, ugh, I don't want to, what is this? It's different, At first it was all exciting, and somehow I had just made a decision, no, this is not what I'm gonna do, because at the time I didn't know anybody, nobody had come out, I didn't talk with anybody about that.
First couple years when I found out, I read that it's kind of like phase for the young girls to go through the lesbian phase. So I hoped that that might be the case.
I wasn't thinking anything permanent, although I never imagined myself married with a man and having kids. I looked into the future for myself, but it was more what I would be doing job-wise or where I would be living. But at some point, it just fit in, and also the queer community fit in with me. Those are the people that I connected with and had friends with. It just became my life.
She is minority here as an Asian American, and woman, another minority. And then here comes lesbian. That's a 3 minority things, and that's a big burden to go through the life.
She always told me exactly what she felt, and in an honest way. And I remember a lot of exchanges we had. In the beginning it was like, look, this is different, I don't like it, and whatever you like to do, that's fine, but in terms of staying with someone, don't make it another person of the same sex. One of my biggest concerns, because my mom is very close to me, but she's also very close to her Korean family. It took her a very long time, up until very recently, to mention anything around me. People would ask, it was just, I'm living in New York, which I was for a while, or whatever, I was working, and I'm unmarried. So I was worried about that because there are family gatherings, and I didn't feel like I should be closeted suddenly in the family. I think that emotionally the biggest challenge for me was my mom, and when I would get really sad about it is that I just didn't, I didn't want to be any less than.
I had to teach myself to direct a different way of the dream. I have a son who educated me. And when I hear that from his point of view, maybe, I was in denial. And then I, paid attention. Whatever article comes across, I read it. In a way, I'm glad that she approached me to come out. She kind of gradually, and I appreciate that worked for our family. How can you say, I have to not accept you? Actually, you have to love them more. It's just love. You just have to love your children, no matter who they are.
When she finally came to saying that, it really meant something, because she really meant it.
We were both raised Hindu, more specifically a particular sect within Hinduism called Mahanubhav. We belong to a caste called Bhavsar, and it's just no matter which caste or which religion you belong to, you're just expected to marry within the same caste. If you go a little away from that, then that's a problem. Now, if you're talking about stepping a little bit away from it, let's start with not getting married soon enough. Then people are worried about, oh, then it will be too late when you have kids, and then people start talking about you. Second level, if you marry outside of your caste, then there is a problem. People are like, oh, couldn't you find somebody of your own caste? Because there is such a strong sense of community within the caste, suddenly, they don't like it and they'll start avoiding you, and that could have implication for financial implication because they may want to do business with you. Now, further up, if you marry somebody from a different religion, oh my God, that could really land you in trouble. Now, when it's a gay relationship, if you're a gay, you're practically breaking everything.
I was trying to convince my parents that you need to listen to him. You need to support him. Not that I could tell them, oh, I'm in the same boat. I did grow up in India, and I came here when I was 32. I certainly didn't know about the concept of being gay, but still I wasn't ready to get married to a boy because I've been avoiding them since my childhood. I think I did not even know, but my body knew, or whatever my behavior knew about it. I came to Mumbai. I was in a dorm, and then the other girls started talking about it. They used to make fun and they used to comment, but then I didn't know what it was called, like, okay, it's homosexuality or what it is, because I've never ever heard of it. It actually went to the warden, and she literally kicked the other girl out of the dorm. And since I was tomboyish, I don't know what was the reason, but she just warned me that if you do something like this again, I'm gonna tell your parents. So I was actually scared and I just couldn't do anything. So at that point I knew that I wanted to, live my life with a girl. But then the only way was to become a boy and then marry a girl. That was the traditional setting. I told him, and it seems like he went and told my parents, and I think they started aggressively looking for a boy, and they just got me married. I did tell my mom that I don't want to marry, but I think nobody listened, and I got married. And after that I'm like, okay, I'll be fine. So then I had a daughter after a couple of years.
I mostly grew up in India. I did my undergrad there at IIT Bombay, and after that I came here for doing my master's. I was totally closeted in India. I knew I'm gay, but it was really difficult to relate to anybody. I didn't really know anybody. At that time, internet wasn't really there. My first ever external interaction or understanding of gay came in a psychology class where they talk about homosexuality, but it was a small paragraph, and it was more like in the military, people have substitute goals because they, that kind of stuff. When I came here, I started getting comfortable being gay.
He came out, and I knew he cannot have kids. So that was another thing, is like, okay, I'll be fine. After I have a kid, then my parents would be happy, that type of stuff. Still, I was struggling, and I think I was living my life, but still somewhere down there, I still had those feelings that, this is not my life.
There was always a conflict. My mom did a lot of drama, crying. Oh, why did this happen? Or did it happen because you went to Bombay? And it happened because you went to the US. Then she kept asking why. She was trying to find anything and everything to blame. When finally there was nothing else to blame, she started blaming herself.
In my marriage, I tried to avoid being close to him, but as a wife, I knew I had to do it. But still, it wasn't coming from inside, and trapped and suffocated. All the time. Nobody knew that I had this on my mind, that I want to get a divorce, or I want to live a separate life away from him. I just couldn't talk about it because I knew my daughter was there. So I just kept quiet until I started working, and that's the point when I decided, okay, I want my daughter here. Ultimately, when my parents came in 2012, I just told them.
The pressure started building up, and I kept resisting, and I kept bringing this subject. I talked to my sister and said, I like guys, and I don't really want to get married to a girl, so I should ask parents to not look for anybody. And I kept, bringing up the subject, and they kept denying it. And the next time I go back to India, a year afterwards, that's when we really confronted. And my parents are like, no, we don't want to hear that. You should just get married like anybody else.
I used to actually try to, make sure that my parents and him, they don't fight. Obviously, my parents did not accept, and they were not ready to believe that, that they're both kids, not just one, but the other kid is also gay. It was gradual.
Your parents, they're not only dealing with the son being gay, they're also dealing with what the society will say. So you have to not only prepare them for what does it mean for your life and you to be gay, but you have to also coach them on how to deal with all these other people.
I would say my dad is still living in the past, so I don't think so he's fully convinced with it. But my mom, she does support a lot. My mom, she has changed a lot in that perspective of accepting me as a gay person. She didn't know the whole scenario, so she would say, oh, things will be fine. I don't think so she had any other choice of telling me, oh, get out of the marriage. I think she tried to cover up in favor of me. As a mother, I would say hats off to her.
I have a boyfriend and he lives here with us. Our parents are supportive. From that perspective, I think it's a good life.
I will convince other parents that convince their kid as they are. बरोबर है?
Convince their kids, accept their kids.
Oh. I will convince other parents that accept their kids as they are.
Okay, you got it.
Good.